What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video, well, I'm very excited for it because we're gonna get my car fixed. As just kind of like a quick TLDR, at my last event with this car, the end-link mounting tabs on the front actually ended up bending, and then on the driver's side, no, passenger side here, it ended up ripping one of the brake lines. Now onto the fun stuff. I picked up a set of BC Racing coilovers, and my reason for doing that is pretty simple. I want to raise the car up a little bit because the front tires do rub. In addition to that, I want to raise it up so I get that suspension geometry back in line. When the car's lowered, it does put the suspension geometry out of whack. Ideally, I would buy the Alex Wilhelm kit, but I'm not a rich guy, so the easier thing to do is raise it. So in addition to fixing the whole suspension geometry, also it's going to help me with my axles. When you lower your car, what happens is you just put the axle at a weird angle. Normally speaking, it just causes the axle to wear faster. Now, if the car was just lowered and it was at that weird angle, I wouldn't be too concerned. But in addition to it being at this weird angle like this, and of course I'm over exaggerating with the axle and with that, it's not that big of a slope, but it does add up. But in addition anyways, the transmission and engine actually sits slightly forward of the hub. So what that means is that in addition to being like this, it also goes to the front. So it really puts the axle at this weird angle. It's something like this, and more than anything, my concern is I don't want to wear out that axle faster than I have to. I also probably should mention the stuff that I do with the car doesn't help the situation, but if I can do anything to help minimize that, I'll definitely take it. Quick side note, because I'm sure someone will ask, why don't you just move the whole engine back? And it's just a lot of work more than anything, so that would require the engine mounts to be remade again. The electrical wiring would all need to be extended, or some of it at least would need to be extended, and then my fuel lines and things like that would have to be extended. I would also have to then modify the exhaust, so it would be a big job to do. So we got instructions. I probably should read them, but actually I will read them. I tend to be that person. I'm that person who reads the instructions. So we're going to start on the front, but obviously these seem like they're quality. The big thing that makes me happy is that they were packaged so nicely. They're not scraped up or anything like that, like other things I've gotten, not from BC, of course. One of the things I did forget to mention is I decided to go with coilovers because I wanted stiffer spring rates. When I consider what I do, it only makes sense. Also, one of my favorite things about this is the fact that it does come with a camber plate for the front. Ideally, I would want camber plates for the back as well, but I understand I bought cheap coilovers. I'm not going to get everything I want. But what I will do with these is I'm actually going to max out the negative camber, and then once I put the crash bolts or camber bolts, that's where I'll adjust the camber. So over here. Anyways, guys, we're going to go install those coilovers. I'm not super concerned about measuring the ride height before or after. I was told that out of the box, they tend to drop the car about an inch. And since my car's dropped about 1.5 inches in the front and 1.75 in the back, that should raise it just about where I want it. And I'll be happy with it. I'm not looking for like this perfect fitment. I don't really care about that. I care more about function than anything. She's been sitting for like the last 2 weeks, or yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since the whole accident thing happened, and she still starts right up, man. This car has come such a long way from when I first got it. It was honestly it was a giant turd when I got it. Now it's turning into something else little by little. Alright, so we got the rim off, the car's up on the ground, or off the ground, correction. As you guys can actually see just looking at this straight on, the wheel's straight, and you guys can see the end-link mounting tab over here, or bracket more like it, is pretty bent. So this should be pretty easy. Undo these bolts, undo these 4 top bolts, and then it should just come out in theory. It's been a while, so we'll see. Alright. Oh, she's out. So, oh my god, you guys can see how bent that thing is. Here, let me adjust the camera for you. Oh yeah, oops. Whatever, the paint's not that good on the car. I hate to admit it, because I do like the paint, like the color, but that's not gonna hurt anything. Anyways though, oh my god, you guys could see how bad that is over there. Wow. So here's just a quick side-by-side comparison. Of course, this is going to look better. It's brand new versus this that's like 25 years old. The biggest thing that gets me is just the size comparison. This is so much more tinier, which is going to allow me to run a wider tire up front. I'm very happy with these guys. This is actually my first set of brand new coilovers. I've had coilovers before, but I always bought used stuff. So this is super cool. So guys, as I mentioned, I'm actually just going to max out the negative camber, and then with the crash bolts up front, I'll adjust from there. But obviously, I won't know for sure my final settings until I get it over to the alignment shop. These bolts are loosened up, and as you guys can see, I should probably loosen them a little bit more. But that's allowing that side-to-side motion. I wonder if there's one side that matters, because like with these, they have an arrow here on the top hat, or they have that little dot that tells you which side goes where. But I don't see anything like that on these ones. So I don't think it really matters. Since this goes on the inside, I'll do it, this way. That way I get the max camber. There you go. So we got the first side on. Everything looks really good to me. I do have to get some little C-clips. I have the little E-clips that goes here, but there's the little C-clip. I'm actually out of those, so I'm gonna have to run to the store later today. So for now, I'll leave the brake line alone, but once I do the brake lines later today, which will be a different video, I'll throw those on. So what I'm gonna do now is quickly do the other side, and then from there, I'm actually just gonna check two things. I wanna make sure that the locking rings are nice and tight, and then I'm gonna make sure that these spaces are the same. I most likely plan on leaving it with whatever drop it has out of the box. So I am just going to go ahead and make sure they're the same right now. But typically, you know, you put the car on the ground, roll it around, let the suspension settle, and then go from there. All right, guys, so we are on the driver's side now. So this is the side where the brake line got cut. You guys can see that's a pretty dang clean cut there, almost all the way through. I really can't emphasize enough how lucky I am. Actually, quick little side story. Initially, I was supposed to be at a racetrack up in Washington, and what happened was, well, first of all, I spent the best $50 of my life. I rented a trailer. I won't name the company for obvious reasons, but the trailer was a legitimate death trap. I immediately returned it. I was out my 50 bucks, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever. Obviously, I still wanted to go do something. Actually, I was out more than 50 bucks because also I paid for the track day over there. So I was out a lot more, but whatever. Anyways, I was like, I want to do something, which is when I found that event in Eugene at the Valley River Center where the car broke. So if I would have been at like a legitimate road course, I would have stuffed the car. So I got super, super, super lucky. Guys, we have a minor issue. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I don't know how well you can see it, but up there, the tire is touching the coilover. I can barely move this. On the other side, it's worse. I already switched out camber bolts. So it's slightly rubbing. Obviously, I have the camber plate set to the most negative setting that it possibly can. If I was to put it to the more positive setting, the strut would move actually closer towards the wheel. And I already took negative camber out of the wheel itself at the knuckle there, which is where I was adjusting it. So what I will end up needing is a small spacer, probably just a few millimeters, nothing crazy. But my plan is, because I have to order that, of course, I have these spacers laying around. So what I'll do is I'll throw these on the front just so I can move the car back and forth. That's just kind of my temporary solution. Well guys, I kind of got in a little bit of a zone, I guess that's a good way to put it. So before I put parts on, obviously I always make sure that they're identical and they're going to fit. So when I was comparing the back coilovers or struts to the new coilovers, one of the things I noticed was actually the top hat was slightly different. So let me actually just grab the OE strut real quick. So what happened was, like I said, I was looking at the strut, and then obviously I've done the suspension in my other car, so I'm familiar with them. And what I noticed is that these two holes look the same, but then this hole seems slightly further out. And I thought I was like just being OCD. So then I measured, and it is the slightly bit off, or the slightest bit further out on the BC coilovers than these ones. So me being the, like, I guess OCD person that I am, I just was like, what, do they not fit then? So then I came over here and I tried to fit them, but I could not get them to fit for the life of me, obviously at the time. So what I ended up doing was I actually made this hole here just slightly larger, and I'm talking about it is just the smallest amount. It maybe like made the hole maybe a millimeter bigger, if that. Overall though, if that's the biggest issue that I have, like I said, just making this a little bit bigger, I'm gonna be really happy with these. All right guys, so to take off the back coilover or strut, whatever, it's actually super simple. You just take off these 3 bolts, but before that, you come down here, you take off the 2, what are these called? The 2 camber bolts. You disconnect the end link, obviously undo the brake so it's not attached to the strut, and then it literally comes on out. The one piece of advice I do give, I recommend putting a rag right here over the axle. That way you don't go and accidentally rip the boot. As you guys can see, we got both struts here. Again, this is notably smaller, which isn't much of a surprise, and obviously looks a million times better. And then up here is kind of what I talked about, and that these bolts are about the same. This one is just slightly further away in comparison to here. So what I'm going to do now is actually try to put the BC strut up there and just show you guys how it doesn't fit in this one. First of all, it's always important to make sure it's not getting caught in anything down there. So I'm going to come down real quick. Bring it up. I wish I had 2 cameras to show you, but it's not getting caught on anything down here. So now as you guys can see, these come up perfectly fine, but this one comes up just slightly further out. I hope this is a better angle of everything. The other 2 are coming in fine, but this one comes slightly further out, as I've mentioned like a million times now. So what I'm going to do is just slightly make this one bigger. As I mentioned for the other side, I just had to make it maybe 1 millimeter bigger, if that, and then it fit with no issues. I think it's 2 things. It's either the fact that there's a tolerance with when they're getting manufactured, or because these parts tend to fit so many different cars, they put something that was good enough for multiple applications. So it's either one. I mean, if that's the biggest issue though, I'm going to be okay with the coilovers. All right, guys, we're about to drop her down. So I'm really curious to see how the overall fitment is going to be. So I pulled the car outside and I'm super happy with how it turned out. I think the fitment's really good. And of course it's going to settle and drop a little bit. Pretty much where I'm kind of at a standstill right now is the fact that I have to set the preload on the sway bars. Obviously, I don't want to move the car too much without brakes. So that's going to have to wait till they get here later today. Obviously put the brake lines on, bleed the brakes, and then get in alignment, and she's going to be good to go, guys. And of course the fact that I have to get a spacer for the front so it clears the coilovers. But other than that, man, she's good. And aside from the fact that I had to drill those tiny little holes, I'm really happy with them. So stick around, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.